Greetings, everyone. Could you guys please take your seats so we can get started? Please take your seats and simmer down. I'm talking to you, Councilman Cook. Yeah, just like the other night. All right, so first off, I'd just like to thank everybody for their time here tonight, whether you're here to support a candidate, whether you're watching or streaming this at home on your electronic device. This is democracy at its finest. It's going to be awesome. We have many candidates with us here tonight, including those running for U.S. Congress, State Representative, Monroe County Commissions, District 2 and 4, Florida Keys Mosquito Control, District 2, and Marathon City Council. I'd like to give a very special thanks to our timers, Brandy Card and Steve Hurley with the Greater Marathon Chamber of Commerce. I'd also like to thank one of my best friends in the whole world, Jathan Williams III, who is running the AV in the back from Monroe County. Thank you, Jathan. Many thanks to the Greater Marathon Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, their staff, CEO Daniel Samus. They are a great advocate for the marathon business community, and we're happy to partner with them to produce this evening's forum. We cannot do this without the support of the Chamber membership, and it's because of Marathon's great business community that we're able to do this free of charge. We're also grateful to Monroe County for providing this venue to us, because we all know that campaigns are expensive. They're all-encompassing endeavors that take candidates on a constant loop of the Overseas Highway. I reserve my greatest appreciation, although, for our candidates. Thank you very much for your candidacy. Many folks do not understand how much time, effort, and money goes into running a campaign. Many hours that could have been spent with your family or running your business have been diverted into campaigning, and I appreciate your dedication to Monroe County, and I'd like to thank you so much for giving us a choice on November 6th. We have many races to cover tonight in a short amount of time to do it. So with that said, we're going to pay special attention to the clock with the understanding that each candidate will be afforded the same amount of time to speak. Each candidate will receive a 30-second opening statement, and Q&A responses will be limited to 1 minute for the first response and then 30-second response from the other candidate or candidates. We will do the best we can to have each candidate respond first within a series of questions. So, for instance, Congressman Curbelo will have a chance to answer twice, and Debbie Mucarsel-Powell will also have a chance to answer first twice. Once the Q&A has been completed, the closing statements will be limited to 1 minute per candidate. Before we begin with the congressional race, it is with great pleasure that I introduce the Greater Marathon Chamber of Commerce CEO and my other best friend, Daniel Samus.
Anytime you're mentioning the same line with Jathan, that's a good thing. So, all right. Thank you again, Jason, the weekly newspapers for this. And let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we have up our two congressional candidates for our 26th district, our incumbent, Congressman Carlos Curbelo, and the challenger, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. So happy to have you guys, and thank you for making the trip down. All right, if our timers could get ready, we're going to start with the 30-second opening statements. And Congressman, you could go first, please.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Jason. Thanks to the Weekly and to the Chamber and to everyone for being here. Every time I walk into this room, I think back exactly about a year ago when Senator Rubio and I drove down just 2 days after Hurricane Irma. We brought hot pizzas for everyone. This room was packed with men and women who were working around the clock trying to help this community recover. A lot of the people who were in here didn't even have homes to sleep in, but they were working. They were working hard for their neighbors, for their friends. And over the course of the last year, I've been a part of that process. I've been here with this community every day, and I look forward to sharing my views here today, and I'm proud to represent this wonderful community. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Debbie, we'll do 45 seconds.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dan.
No problem.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. Good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie Mucarsel-Powell, and I'm running for Congress here in Florida's 26th Congressional District. And I'm running because I think we all agree that we need change. We need change in this community. We need authentic leaders that are going to fight for each and every one of us. I've been working in this community for over 20 years, working in Coral Restoration Foundation with Ken Niedermeyer, really fighting the effects of climate change, and then working most of my career at FIU, providing access to healthcare, getting student scholarships for minority students here in this district. I'm here because I'm ready to represent each and every one of you, and I want to be a fighter for you in Washington.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay, we'll get into the Q&A here. All right, first up, once again, we'll start with you, Congressman, and you will have 60 seconds. Immigration has been a hot topic, and many feel improvements and adjustments should be made. How do you propose the immigration system be reformed?
Any of the big issues that many people care about, whether it's immigration, the environment, guns, taxes, the economy, if we're going to have big, bold solutions that solve problems, we need Republicans and Democrats to work together. And that's exactly what I've done on immigration from day one. In the 2015-16 term of Congress, I was the only member in the entire House, Republican or Democrat, who filed a solution for Dreamers. This past Congress, I've been working on a balanced approach that can bring Republicans and Democrats together. I think we need to secure the border. Most people in our country agree that our borders should be secure, that we need to keep Americans safe. But we also need to have a compassionate and healthy legal immigration system that helps the victims of a broken immigration system and allows our economy to thrive by giving people the opportunity to come to this country. If we're going to solve this issue, we need Republicans and Democrats to work together on it, and I've been focused on building that bridge in Congress.
Thank you, Congressman. Debbie, 30 seconds.
Yeah, we all agree that we need immigration reform, and there was a bill. The first thing that we needed to do with this Republican-dominated Congress was to protect our dreamers. There was a bill that had over 200 sponsors that Congressman Curbelo failed to sign on to. We had full bipartisan support, and the thought is that if it were introduced today, that same bill, it would pass. The problem is that the Speaker will not introduce a bill like that to the floor, and the problem is that Congressman Curbelo, although he says that he cares about immigration reform, he caves in to the most extreme Republican members of his party that will not bring a comprehensive reform bill to the floor.
All right, thank you. All right, second question. Debbie, you're going to lead this one off. Get 1 minute. Bipartisanship is the key to effective government. Reaching across the aisle, what is one initiative you feel is most deserving of compromise?
I think that we have some very, very serious issues that we need to deal with, especially in healthcare. And I've had experience working with members of both opposing parties, and they say that if you worked in academia, it's the one area that prepares you to work in government. We need to fix what we have right now, the current system. We have a lot of issues with the ACA, but it doesn't mean repealing it and taking away access to healthcare, excuse me, for more than 100,000 members and family members here in this community. So I can tell you that there are things that we can work together on, and it's reducing healthcare costs right away.
Okay, thank you very much. Same question, 30 seconds, Carlos.
I think you'll hear, not just tonight, but my opponent attack a lot and then also share a lot of platitudes about the ways things should be. I think we need to focus on real solutions. The environment is a big one for all of us here in this beautiful part of the world, and that's why I filed the Market Choice Act. It's a bill that prices carbon so it would drive down carbon emissions, and the revenue from pricing carbon would be used to invest in American infrastructure. These are concrete bipartisan ideas that can actually solve big problems in this country, and what we need are real solutions on paper, not just platitudes and attacks like you hear from my opponent.
Okay, on to question number 3, and Congressman, you're going to lead this one off, 60 seconds. With increasing gun violence in our country, how do we reconcile the need for safety and the right to bear arms?
I think the state of Florida set a wonderful example how Republicans and Democrats can work together to make us safer. I support the Florida gun reform agenda. I think we need to increase the age for all gun purchases to 21. I think we should have 72-hour waiting periods for all gun purchases. I think we should have universal background checks so that everyone who buys a gun has to go through the National Instant Background Check system. These are solutions that will actually keep us safer. I have introduced this legislation with Republican and Democratic colleagues in the House. This is another one of those issues that's so controversial and where there's so much passionate on both sides that only by sending bridge builders to Washington that'll actually genuinely reach across the aisle with real solutions on paper, not pretty ideas, but real solutions, that's how we're going to move forward on issues like this one, like immigration, like the environment, like healthcare, all the tough issues.
Thank you. 30 seconds, Debbie?
A couple of things. My opponent says that he believes in universal background checks, yet he voted against universal background checks. And I can tell you that the Florida legislature that passed this gun reform bill, what it's doing is giving funding for teachers to be able to purchase arms, to be trained and purchase arms. What our teachers need, and I think we all agree, what they need is funding for books, funding to teach, not to be arm bearers in right now in this era of violence. I believe that we need to pass universal background checks. More than 90% of Americans agree with that. And I believe that we need to get military-style weapons off the streets.
Okay. All right, thank you, guys. All right, next question. Debbie, you're going to lead this one off, 60 seconds. Within the last 2 years, the Affordable Care Act has been dismantled, and there has been no structured plan for its replacement. Where does Congress go from here to bring some certainty to the future of health care in America?
Yes, so what I've seen is that there are a lot of things that we can actually get done fairly quickly to reduce costs in the healthcare system. It starts by allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. The ACA is not perfect. We need to work on fixing it, but we can't take away coverage for millions of Americans that are living right now that depend, especially in this community. Monroe County really depends on the ACA to get their health care. So start with allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices and bring transparency to the pharmaceutical companies who right now are allowed to raise the pricing for their medicine from $30 a pill to $300 a pill. And there's absolutely no transparency. And I know that there's legislation that we can pass to bring that to Congress.
Thank you very much. Same question, 30 seconds, Congressman.
So this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I'd like to point to my work to promote research and the fair treatment of children suffering from pediatric cancer in our healthcare system. For a long time, children were at a disadvantage. They weren't included in trials of new and innovative drugs because they would hurt the statistics, the success rates of those trials. We passed legislation to change that, giving children the opportunity to get the same benefits that really adults do from innovation in the pharmaceutical industry. These are the types of solutions that we need to focus on. These are modest solutions that can make a big difference in people's lives.
All right, thank you. And this is our final question. Carlos, you will start off with 1 minute. How do you feel about Amendment 4 on the general election ballot, restoring voting rights to nonviolent offenders?
I 100% support it. I have been one of the strongest supporters in either party of criminal justice reform in the United States Congress. Any society that's fair means people have a second chance. Once someone commits a crime, goes to jail, pays their debt to our society, they should be given a new start, a new beginning. We don't do that in our state. We don't do that in a lot of ways in our country. We condemn people for life, and it is wrong. Once someone, especially people who aren't violent offenders, people who haven't convicted of violent crimes, if they pay their debt to society, they should be given the opportunity to start anew, and not just by allowing them to vote, but by helping them get work. We passed major legislation in the House, prison reform, to make sure that our prisons are places where people can become better citizens, not better criminals. I will passionately support this entire agenda, and I will be voting yes on Amendment 4.
Thank you, Congressman. Debbie, same question.
My answer is very short. I fully support the restoration of voting rights.
Thank you very much, guys. Okay, we're going to move on to closing statements. Once again, you get 1 minute for that. And Debbie, first, please.
One of the things that I want everyone to know in this room is that you may not agree with every single issue that I talk about, but what you can definitely count on is someone that's transparent. You'll always know where I stand on all the issues. You will have a fighter, someone that is going to stop talking about climate change, but someone that will actually be a champion and take action right away, someone that will fight to provide access to healthcare for all of us. It's where I've focused the majority of my career in, and also pass economic policies that is going to work for working class families, small businesses, and all of us, not just the top 1%. So if I have the honor to represent you, know that I will be representing each and every one of you, and I will be your champion in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Congressman?
Again, regrettably, my opponent launches a lot of attacks, but actually has no solutions for the big challenges that face our country. You can look for them anywhere, on her website, anywhere. No solutions. What's her solution for the environment? It's non-existent. And we've heard enough talk for years from politicians. Americans are so frustrated at our political system. The economy's doing great in this country, but people are still frustrated. People are still upset. They know something's wrong, and it's the politics. There's too many people in Washington, D.C. who talk a good game, but when it comes to putting something on paper, to sitting at the table and trying to compromise and negotiating, they just won't do it. If we're going to fix our politics in this country, if this community is going to continue moving forward, we need people in Washington, D.C. who have the courage, because regrettably it takes courage these days, to sit at the table, have a dialogue, have a negotiation, not make empty attacks, but actually put solutions on the table that people can have a debate on and reach a compromise. That's what I've done from day one. It's what I'll continue to do for this district and for our country. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for your time. Appreciate it. All right, next up will be our state representative race.
There we go.
How's my hair? We're switching moderators.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
All right, this time we'd like to welcome our candidates for state representative, or some of them who have traveled many miles to be here tonight. So thank you, Steve and Holly, for coming tonight. Appreciate it. We'd like to go ahead and start with our opening statement. So Holly, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Thank you so much, Jason. And I'm Holly Raschine, and it's been an honor to represent District 120 in the fabulous Florida Keys for the past 6 years in the Florida House, and to continue my proven track record in leadership on important issues like being a steward for our environment, making sure that we have the resources that we need for hurricane recovery, as well as making sure that our workforce, the backbone of our community, has safe and affordable housing. Again, I'm looking forward to my 4th and final term as your state representative. Thank you.
Thank you. And Steve.
My name is Steve Friedman. I'm a fishing guide. I've lived in Islamorada for 18 years now. My wife, Christine, who works there as a waitress. We have 2 children. They're enrolled in the Monroe County Public School System. And when I decided to run for public office, the first thing I did was I signed the Now or Never Glades Declaration, because I believe that water is the most important thing to consider when being a state representative. Not only that, unlike my opponent, I refuse to take any corporate PAC money or any money from Big Sugar. I look forward to your questions.
Okay, great. Well, we'll start with you, Holly. Environmental agencies and state government are scrambling to address the problem of algae blooms. Here in the Keys, where many take the preservation of our natural resources so seriously, blue-green algae is cause for alarm, even though it's in our backyard, the Florida Bay. Are you in favor of approving a state mandate to sewer coastal towns in an effort to prevent red tide and algae blooms from reaching the Florida Keys?
Thank you, Jason, and that's an incredibly awesome idea. As you all know, we're an area of critical state concern, and we were under our own mandate to completely sewer our island chain, and we are a model. We're a proven model for the entire state. In our small community, we hooked up to sewers, and we are seeing the fruits of our labor, over $1 billion right here in our small community. So absolutely, that's actually a very popular policy that's being considered in Tallahassee. Septic to sewer conversions, and we've seen a definite shift in the conversation up there. So I'm very, very encouraged by that. And again, I think the Florida Keys serve as a fantastic model for the rest of the state.
Okay, great. Steve, 30 seconds.
I support anything that helps clean the water, but as good as it's been to get off of septic, it's going to do us no good if we've got a toilet north of us that keeps flushing down. So I'm in favor of accelerating programs that we already have in place for 18 years now. It's old enough to vote. I think it's time that we accelerate these programs and create some better water quality that way.
Okay, thank you. So, Steve, you'll get the next question. 3 weeks to the day after the Parkland shooting, Governor Rick Scott signed into law the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act, a comprehensive bill that includes a provision that raises the age to purchase a gun, bans bump stocks, and allows law enforcement, with the approval of a judge, to bar a person deemed dangerous due to mental illness from owning guns for up to a year. You're both parents. Can you please give us a layman's example of mental health policies, services, and screenings that should be at your children's school?
Well, that's a very good question, and one difficult to ask and one answer in 1 minute. It was very difficult for me to have that conversation with my kids on what happened in Parkland, I might add. I am a gun owner. I believe in the Second Amendment. I have a concealed weapon permit. But I believe that we need some common sense gun safety laws. And I believe we need universal background checks. And we need to expand Medicaid so that we can maybe help with some of those mental illnesses that are still in place where people like that can go and purchase guns. I think we need to stop that as soon as we can. If you're on a no-fly list, if you're on a terrorist list, you should not be able to buy a weapon. I think we can start there.
Okay, Holly, would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Can you give us a layman's example of mental health policies, services, and screenings that should be at your children's school?
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. And a major component of Senate Bill 7026, the public safety bill that you're referencing, is mental health funding and training and resources. So we put a tremendous amount of taxpayer dollars into just those things, increasing mental counseling, training, and funding basically statewide in our school districts as part of that comprehensive bill, which included gun control measures, school hardening, and also a long-term commission to examine what went wrong in the Parkland tragedy.
Okay, thank you. So Holly, this first question will be for you. We have a dilemma in the Florida Keys. We need affordable housing. Yet in 2023, there will be no more residential development allowed in the Florida Keys. What's your solution?
I think that we need as many tools in our toolbox as possible when it comes to this. I know that there are additional allocations from the state when it comes to affordable units. That's currently being debated in our community right now. But this past session, I was successful in securing $15 million for workforce housing projects just here in the Florida Keys. We had an affordable housing critical, I would say it was a critical point there, but then Irma exacerbated it into a crisis. And so again, securing that $15 million will go towards workforce housing projects right here in the Keys, and actually 3 have already been approved by the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, 2 right here in the city of Marathon, one of the the worst hit areas here and obviously the lower Keys. So funding, flexibility, and folks up in Tallahassee recognizing the unique situation that we're facing here in the Keys.
Okay, thank you. Steve, we need affordable housing, yet in 2023 there will be no more residential development allowed in the Keys. What's your solution?
Well, as I said, I'm a fishing guide. I've realized that this has been going on for over 20 years now, so to sit here and say that I've got a solution and a silver bullet just wouldn't be truthful. What I do know is that we need to stop raiding the housing fund. That's been going on for 11 years in a row. We could start there. I think that we could also help community programs like the Florida Keys Community Land Trust that's doing a fantastic job with very little government help.
Okay, thank you. So this first question will be for you, Steve. In May, Governor Rick Scott announced a gift of 1,300 affordable housing units for the Florida Keys. If the next governor were to extend another number of units, would you support it?
Again, I would look to the people that have been reviewing this for years and years. I think it's a very tricky situation, as we've seen in a lot of these forums. There's no right or wrong answer here. There are some great ideas going along from housing policemen and EMT people so they wouldn't fall under the mandatory evacuation time. But I would leave that to the locals and help wherever I can.
Okay, Holly, if the governor were to extend more units to Monroe County, would you support it?
I think the 1,300 is probably a pretty good number to start with, and I'd like to remind folks that these are optional units. Local governments from Key West to the county can choose whether or not to opt into them. But again, like I said before, we need as many tools in our toolbox to tackle this very, very important issue facing our community. And again, having the flexibility and understanding that we're busing folks in. And, making sure that our workforce, which is the backbone of our community, has a safe and affordable place to live is important.
Okay, thank you. So, Holly, this next question is for you. Like you stated, you've served in the House for 6 years now. What are you most proud of to date? And what's one thing you'd like to accomplish if you're reelected?
Thank you. I think one of my proudest moments was the passage of the Florida Keys Stewardship Act that we passed in 2016. And what that bill did was to set up dedicated funding sources for two very important issues facing us here in the Keys: water quality and land acquisition. And again, educating my colleagues up in Tallahassee about the unique situation that we have in our Keys. Our environment is the number one thing that we have here. It's our backbone. It's why people come to the Keys and enjoy our pristine waters and our natural resources. So probably the passage of that. Also working with our commercial fishing industry and our locals here in our tourism industry, making sure that we're cracking down on folks that are pillaging our natural resources. And the last thing that I would like to work on is we have another big issue facing us, and that's the coral reef disease that's affecting the entire southern reef tract. And working to secure more funding and more resources to combat that.
Okay, thank you. And Steve, 30 seconds to respond.
Could you repeat, please?
Sure. I just asked Holly, she'd been serving in the House for 6 years. I asked her what she's most proud of to date and one thing that she would like to accomplish if reelected. And there'll be one more question for you after this.
Okay, I'm going to answer it this way. What I would do if I got to Tallahassee, if you were kind enough to vote for me in November, is I would do the exact opposite of what's been going on lately. Because we need to make polluters pay. In 1996, 2/3 of voters approved a constitutional amendment to make polluters pay, and nobody's enforcing that. So that would be the first thing that I would do.
Okay. Steve, this question is for you. So we know the environment is very important to you. You've been a champion of it, and that's been one of your main campaign platforms. Can you give us 3 other issues that are most important to you behind the environment?
I would say education, affordable housing, and water quality.
Okay, okay. Holly, 30 seconds to respond.
All right, I think I already mentioned it, combating the latest culprit on the block, and that's the coral reef disease. But vacation rentals, a lot of times it's about what you get done in Tallahassee, but a lot of times it's about stopping the bad stuff. And we were able to, by my vote, kill a very, very bad bill that would have significantly reduced local control over vacation rentals. And with the unique situation that we face here in the Keys with balancing vacation rentals and the needs of our workforce, I think that would be something that I would like to work on further.
Okay, thank you. So you will both have 1 minute for closing statements. Steve, why don't we start with you?
As I mentioned before, when I got into this race, I signed the Now or Never Glades Declaration. I think it's very important to understand that water is the very most important issue that is going on with this district. This district covers more shoreline than any other in the state, and if the representative of this district does not take that seriously, they should not be there. Water is our economy. We need to accelerate the Everglades restoration projects. There's not been one single one that's been completed. It's over 18 years old. It's old enough to vote now. We need to make polluters pay. So, you know, I'm a fishing guide. If I get caught with one fish that's over the slot limit, I have to pay a fine. There are millions of tons of fish that are washing ashore on our beaches very close to us right now, and nobody's paying. And I'm going to stop that. So please consider voting for me in November.
Great, thank you. Holly, Steve, I'd like to thank you guys.
I didn't do my
Oh, you didn't get
closing.
yours yet,
That's
Holly?
okay.
Sorry.
I'll be
I
fast.
didn't do that on purpose.
I'll be fast.
Good night,
I know-
everybody. You've
I
been
know you
great.
wanna-
Thank you.
I know you want to wrap this up again.
Get out and vote.
I am Holly Raschine, and truly, other than the birth of my son, one of the proudest moments of my life has been able to represent this unique district, and we have a proven track record of success. And some of the major issues that we've had to work on is the environment, workforce housing, making sure vacation rentals, we're able to kind of control that for our unique needs here. And in my last term, I will be at the most senior level of my years in service, and I know that I will be able to take our community's message up to Tallahassee with me. We need a voice up there. I've been our voice, and I can't tell you how honored I am to represent the Florida Keys. And I thank the Weekly and thank the Chamber of Commerce, and I hope that you all remember to vote for Holly Raschine in November. Thank you.
All right, big round of applause for our state representative candidates. Thank you guys so much. So coming up next, we're going to do the county commission races. So we're going to ask all four candidates. District 2, we have David Rice. I'm sorry. District 4, we have David Rice and Vicki Tajan. And then in District 2, we have Michelle Coldiron and Tommy Ryan.
Okay. All right, guys. Got a full group up here. Thank you so much. As Jason mentioned, just for expediency and time, it's just easier to bring everyone up at the same time for this part of the forum. Obviously, once again, our Monroe County Board of County Commissioners. So we're going to stick to the same format, and we have our nice volunteers here once again holding up the 15-second sign and then stop sign. So if you could please pay attention, be respectful of that. We will get through this. So we're going to start with opening statements, which are 30 seconds each. And I'm going to start all the way to the left. Marathon Mayor Michelle Coldiron, you can lead us off.
Well, thank you, and thank you all so much for being here this evening. My name is Michelle Coldiron, and I'm running for County Commissioner because our future matters. I've lived in the Keys for 18 years. I'm extremely active in our community and our county, sitting on various boards. I am also an elected official right now. I want to take my experience and put it to work immediately for the county to make sure this continues to be the best place to live, work, raise a family, or run a business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And her opponent, Tommy Ryan.
Good evening. My name's Tommy Ryan. I'm a resident of Big Pine Key, and I jumped into this race because of the aftermath of Hurricane Irma. I'm a United States veteran, the Army, United States Army. I was also a New York City firefighter. In the last several months or year, I've helped to pick up over 400,000 pounds of debris off the streets and out of the water in and around Big Pine Key.
Okay. Thank you, Tommy, very much. And now for the District 4 race, opening statements, Monroe County Mayor, Dr. David Rice, 30 seconds.
Thank you. 45 years ago, I moved to this community with not much else other than a brand new PhD and a burning desire to make a life in the Florida Keys. I've done that. Thank you. I ran the Guidance Clinic of the Middle Keys, which I started when I came to town for 33 years, and have been very active in the community. I was president of Pigeon Key for the first 5 years. Short list.
Thank you, Dr. Rice.
Thank you, Steve.
This is Vicki Tashin.
Hi, I'm Vicki Tashton. I've been a resident here for 26 years. I have a heavy background in tourism in that field for 35 years, and since that's our #1 industry for our tax dollars, I think that's a good background to begin with. I also have been a volunteer fire rescue person in Marathon for 8 years in the past, and I look forward to trying to bring this county to another level for our affordable housing, our environment, and our hurricane evacuation.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, we're going to start back again, all the way to the left. Michelle, first question is for you, 60 seconds. Keys municipalities, including Marathon, Islamorada, and Key West, have begun the process to change comprehensive plans to accept the state's gift of 1,300 affordable housing allocations. The county has yet to take a formal stance on the issue. What's more important to you, protecting the county via holding onto affordable ROGO units or seeing affordable housing built?
So the 1,300 units came to the county due to Marathon City Council having passed a resolution requesting 300 units because we saw how important it was to have our workforce have the ability to continue to live here. We did rewrite our comprehensive plan and our land development regulations to ensure that we're protecting our habitat, to make sure that our infrastructure can hold those additional units, and to make sure that people can safely evacuate in a hurricane. So do I believe that the county should also take those units? I can't remember what the question was. I would say yes, that we should, because it's so important for us to keep our families living here. It doesn't necessarily mean that the county needs to implement those units right away, but they can put them in the bank, and they could have those units available then for if there's a great project that comes along that would serve the needs of the community and keep our families living here.
Thank you, Michelle. Because everyone else now for the same question will have 30 seconds. Tommy, do you want me to repeat it, the question for you?
Yeah, please.
Okay, yes, sir. This is regarding the 1,300 affordable housing allocations that the governor has offered to the Keys. And in that all the cities have accepted them, the county has yet to. What's more important to you, protecting the county via holding onto affordable ROGO units or seeing affordable housing built? 30 seconds.
Well, I kind of think that I'm against the county taking those ROGOs. And being against it doesn't necessarily mean you're against affordable houses. It's kind of a, trap of a question there, honestly, because, there's two different issues there. Affordable homes is definitely needed here, but accepting those ROGOs is going to open up a whole Pandora's box for the county.
Okay, thank you. Same question, Mayor Rice?
Well, I would have to say that to me, the result is exactly the same, whether we build affordable housing now or save them to build affordable housing later. They both take one piece of property off the list that may generate and will generate very expensive takings cases, which we will all be paying for. It really doesn't matter. The county has 500 units right now. We have plenty of units to build. We need to be building.
Thank you. Vicki?
I think we need to accept those units and let the cities that have plans and have requested them go ahead and use them. That would be Marathon, Islamorada. That's 300 in each one of those. There's also a 50-unit allocation for Layton and for Key Colony Beach, and if they so choose to do that. That leaves 300 units still for the county. I think the county needs to accept those, and if they don't need to use them, fine, don't use them. And it is a fine balance when we get down to this 2023 issue. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, the next question, we're going to start with you, Tommy. So you will have 60 seconds for this one, Tommy. A tax to support indigent care at Fisherman's Community Hospital has been controversial. It will run from mile markers 40 to 63 at a maximum of $500,000 for 10 years with the goal to raise $15 million. What is your response to constituents who oppose the tax simply because there wasn't a referendum?
Well, I don't think they're wrong in opposing the tax. I think there should have been a referendum. I think that the whole proposal And just the basis of bringing you're either for, if you're against the tax, you're against the hospital. And that's just political rubbish. Because you can be against the tax without being against the hospital. The hospital came forth and they bought a hospital. They're a $1 billion company. They could well afford to do this without the tax. The tax was presented as, first it was presented as to rebuild the hospital, then it was presented to as indigent care. You know, which is it? You know, we sat here in Marathon for a meeting with them, and they were asked to show the damages to the hospital. They were not able, nobody on the dais was able to show what the damages were. I can tell you the damages to my house that the insurance will pay, that the public adjuster will pay, and the contractor says it's worth. Nobody up there, not one lawyer up there, not the CFO, nobody could tell you what that cost.
All right, thank you, Tommy. Same question, 30 seconds. Dr. Rice.
Yes, I believe we did exactly the right thing. The thing that we really gain from not going to referendum, and it's a procedural issue, is we get to review the effectiveness of this process every year of the 10 years. Had we gone to referendum, we would have approved it. It would have been approved for the entire 10 years. This way, we get to see how things are working and make an annual decision.
Thank you. Same question, Vicki, 30 seconds.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. Yes, we need the hospital, most definitely. We do need that. And at the same time, I understand where people wanted to vote on this. I don't think either side gave a very good report to the public, whether it be a PR issue or whatever from the county or from the hospital board, so people clearly understood what was going on. Therefore, that's why people think they needed to vote. If you look at what our tax base is going to, and that, it ends up as a wash where we're really not going to have an increase overall. So it ends up being good for us. I still am not happy with the transparency issue, and I think there needs to be a better PR put in place as to what this is for.
Thank you. Same question, Michelle, 30 seconds.
As elected officials, we are required to provide levels of service that include fire, police, and a critical care hospital is a key element that is needed in the Middle Keys. By approving this ordinance with specific language in it that states it can never be more than 0.5 mil, it will not last any longer than 10 years, and every single year it will go to review by the City Council, and every year they may either approve it or write an ordinance disallowing it if it's no longer needed. Protects our citizens to keep a hospital and keep scrutiny on how the money is being spent.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to our third question. Dr. Rice, you're going to lead us off, and you will have 1 minute to answer this one. In 2017, Monroe County pledged $5 million towards the purchase of a Stock Island commercial fishing yard intended to preserve working waterfront for Lower Keys commercial fishermen who have seen several former commercial seafood marinas converted into private marinas or resorts. Should the county be using taxpayer dollars to compete with private enterprise?
Well, I think there's a real public interest in doing that. Now, we have not done that, as I'm sure you're aware. We have looked at 2 marinas. Neither marina was right at the time. After the hurricane, we made the decision to take a pass on the last marina we were looking at. What we're really focused on is an environmental issue. We have hundreds of boats anchored around in Key West off of Stock Island. If you take an aerial photograph of that area, you will see that every boat that's anchored there generally has about 20 feet of chain on there that they've attached to what is probably an old motor block on the bottom, and you will see circles on the bottom. Those circles are the damage to the seagrass that are created by those boats. We need a land base so we can have a managed mooring field, much like we have here in Boot Key Harbor. Thank you.
Okay. Same question, Vicki, 30 seconds.
I think to have passed on the one marina was a very wise decision. The second one that comes into play, they do need to have some way to get those boats off of those moorings as they so choose, for lack of a better word. They're not true mooring buoys. I still am very cautious on if they need to do that or not, because look at Rowell Marine. What have they done with that? That's an atrocity. If they're going to do it, they need to make sure they have the monetary situation where they can, because the budget is very fragile at the moment, before they move any further with that being county versus private.
Thank you, Vicki. Michelle, 30 seconds, same question.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The gist of it is, should the county be using taxpayer dollars to compete with private enterprise, but specifically referring to the pledge of $5 million to purchase a working waterfront in Stock Island?
So we are all tasked, living in the fabulous Florida Keys, of trying to protect our working waterfront to the best of our ability. At this point in time, though, I don't think that that money would have been prudent to spend buying that marina, given the current budget constraints. I think it would be more important right now to take the properties that are currently owned and improve upon them and make them the best they can be, and when then the money is available, to go back to the goal of protecting our working waterfront if there's money available.
Thank you. And last, Tommy, 30 seconds.
Well, in theory, it's a good idea, but just at this time, we don't have that kind of money to do that. And if we do have that kind of money, why aren't we spending it on something really worthwhile, like helping the people in Stock Island by buying up the sewer system there? Those people there are being taxed to death with the sewer there. They get increases every year of like 60 to 100% every year. So, you know, we need to offset what kind of money we have and what we're spending it on, especially right after a hurricane.
All right. Thank you, guys. Okay, next question. Vicki, you're going to lead us off, so you get 60 seconds. What is one ordinance you would propose, one you would repeal, and one you would amend?
Oh, that's tough.
We'll start the clock when you start talking.
Ordinance.
Ordinance you would appeal, amend, or propose, appeal, and amend.
Yeah, call a friend is right.
If you can't get
a
to all
tough
three,
order.
maybe focus on one that you know for a fact you would want to
That's a tough order.
either get rid of or add or amend. Start with the one that would mean the most to you, I guess. And if you can get to the others, I know time is limited.
Oh, wow. Ordinance. Ordinance and amendments, I really get confused on them, to be very honest with you. I think we need to look at our ordinances for code, specifically in vacation rentals. I do not think they are enforced as strongly as they need to be in the county. For one I would appeal, I think I would appeal the taxation on the hospital with the 5-year addition possibility to it. I would like to review that. And what was my third one?
It was one to propose, one to repeal, and one to amend. So you
One to propose.
you talked about amending code, and you talked about
Okay. I would like to propose to add to our hurricane policies to work on contingency plans for every island.
Okay. All right, thank you. I know that was a tough one.
Yeah.
Michelle, you only get 30 seconds to think about all three.
Yeah.
But like I said, guys, I know it's limited time, and that's a tough one. So if there's one, as far as just triage those, and you say, you know, I know that there is one that means a lot to me than some of the others, and focus on that.
So that's a stinky question, and I'm just going to say that. Is that some of my seconds ticking off on that? So it would have to be something along the lines of our vacation rental ordinances, which, of course, we're not allowed to change or tweak due to the fact that we're mandated by the state of Florida. We were grandfathered in with what we have. We're not allowed to change it. So if there was some way that we could convince our legislative body to let us tweak our vacation rental ordinance, that would be the one that I would want to work on the most.
Thank you. Tommy,
30
seconds. And an ordinance that you would propose, one that you would repeal, and one that you would amend. And I think like the other candidates are doing, if maybe there's just one
I
of those
think
to focus.
one of the things I'd like to see us address is the 50% rule, because that's affecting so many people in the second district. It's really it's taken the legs out from a lot of people, and how do we address it? That's the tough part. There's a lot in the building department that I would, I think I would like to start overhauling the building department completely.
Okay.
That'd be my step.
All right. Mayor Rice?
Hit those 3 points again for me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. What is one ordinance within the county that you would propose, repeal, and amend? Different ordinances.
Well, for proposing, I will mention one that I just proposed at our last meeting, which was to eliminate penalties for people who did not pull demolition permits immediately after the storm. There was a lot of confusion. People simply didn't know. Rule 109 is coming up. Rule 109 would double density in rural areas of Monroe County for affordable housing. I am not in favor of that. So in anticipation, I would repeal that.
Okay.
We'll see if it passes.
All right. Thank you very much.
It won't with my vote.
All right. Last question before we get to closing, and we're circling back now. Michelle, you will lead off. 60 seconds to you. It was just announced there is new direct air service from Key West to Chicago and Philadelphia. While the Key West Airport continues to expand, what's your position on establishing commercial air service at Marathon Airport?
So this has always been an issue for the people in the Middle Keys, that they wish that we had a more viable airport, and it's been attempted in the past unsuccessfully. And I think now that we have some more hotels that are about to open in the Marathon area, it might be nice to revisit the issue. And I also know that the airport is currently working on redoing the strip and making it larger, which then would mean our runway would be longer. This would also help alleviate some of the traffic that is bottlenecking now in Islamorada with day trippers trying to come in. So if there is a way that, I wouldn't propose it this year, as we're still trying to get all of our hotels up online to see but as our occupancy rates increase, as these new hotels come online, I think now would be the time for us to collaborate with the county's Key West Airport and with the, you're making me stop. I'm just getting going.
Thank you, Michelle. Sorry to cut you short. Tommy, same question, 30 seconds.
I think it would be a good idea. It'd be a great idea if you could get the right airlines here. If you could get the cheaper airlines that, maybe some of the no frills that come in. Because as anybody here that flies out of Key West knows, it's very expensive to fly in out of Key West. That's why we have a lot of traffic on the road sometimes, because people have to drive up to Fort Lauderdale or Miami to fly out of here. But it would be good. It'd be worth looking into. Anything that would help bring improve the area and tourist-wise would be great.
Thank you. David?
Yes, well, earlier last week, I had a meeting and my first introduction to our new airport director who came to us from California. He has a great deal of experience doing exactly what you're talking about. As you know, I'm not exactly a neophyte to that, since I've done it before. Several of us did it together, as a matter of fact. I believe we can do that. Most small communities like ours have to give a revenue guarantee to the airlines. With that, we can do it. Without it, we'll see.
Thank you. And Vicki, 30 seconds.
Well, I would obviously love to see us have air service again. I was a great user of that in the past. We have several issues to deal with on that. First of all, as Michelle said, the runway, it needs to be cleaned back up. It needs to be lengthened. At one time, Marathon Airport actually was the longest airport, not Key West.
We still are.
Well,
Yeah.
not maintained real well, but yes, we still are. You also going to have to look at code share. Yes, we can get an airline to come in here if we're going to subsidize them for a little bit, but if that subsidy's gone and you don't have the code shares that's going to help them make their loads, then we're going to lose them again. So there's a lot of components to getting an air service back in here.
Thank you, Vicki. All right, we're going to lead into closing statements. Tommy, you're going to lead us off. You get 60 seconds, everyone, for closing
60
statements.
seconds, okay. I'm, as I told you, I'm a resident of Big Pine, and I'm running for this office because I saw a problem, and then I saw problems, and I like to address them. And I am a person who lives in my district. I didn't buy a house just to run for this office. I bought a house to live in a community, and I live in that community. I love that community. I've been working my tail off for the last year in that community, picking up debris left and right, in the water, out of the water. And I do feel, you know, we live 6 months of the year in hurricane season. The rest of the country should be looking to Monroe County to have the best plan in place for both pre and post storms. And we can do that if we put our heads together and get in there, work hard, and make a plan that is solid for Category 1, Category 2, Category 3, 4, 5, and if they ever come up with a 6. That's what we need. We need it, and we need it desperately because everything we do in this county revolves around hurricanes.
Thank you, Tommy. Mayor Rice?
Well, Daniel, since you didn't ask me what my proudest accomplishment has been, I'm going to tell you anyhow.
Thank you.
And that would be far and away the creation of our current TraumaStar system. I know that many of us recognize the value of that. We're transporting about 1,100 critically ill and injured patients per year, and it's not costing us a penny in tax dollars. Our future in the Keys and our quality of life depends on a balance between, I like to say, 3 things. The volume of our tourism, the volume of our traffic, and the presence of our affordable housing. Those should be our focus over upcoming years, that and positioning the county so that we can survive the takings cases that we anticipate after 2023. We can not only survive it, but we can still afford to live here. That's the important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Vicki?
Again, my name is Vicki Tashjian, and I feel that I can do a good job for you since I have a strong basis in the tourism industry, which again is what our tax-based dollars are based on. I have a budget background as I'm a certified hotel administrator. I have boots on the ground experience with working with our EMTs and our fire rescue for when we do have occurrences. I'm in the process of getting my CERT training so that I'm more prepared for disaster situations. I have run hotels in this community for 25 years before I went into business for myself with vacation rentals. I know the needs. I know how we need to have and use those to keep our personnel here when we need them for the hurricane situations. We also need to be paying very close attention to our environment. I spent many years helping with the coral reef sweep, keeping our reefs clean as well. I now work as a volunteer with the FWC for Your Water Quality to try to watch the red tide participation and make sure we're not getting into that area. Please vote for me, Vicki, District 4.
Thank you, Vicki. And last, Michelle.
Thank you. And I want to thank the people who voted for me to serve the citizens of Marathon. I will truly always cherish this experience and the leadership that I have gained. I am proud of my accomplishments, helping to reduce the budget, to increase reserves before a hurricane, to have encouraged and approved workforce housing projects, and to learn to collaborate with other municipalities to make sure that our county's needs are always heard in Tallahassee. I want to take that experience and put it to use for the entire county. Yes, it's our environment and it's affordable housing, but immediately what I also want to do is purchase a mobile unit that can be used in the hardest hit areas after a hurricane that would put boots on the ground. I also want to create a District 2 committee made up of representatives of each of the keys that make up District 2 so that every unique key in District 2, their voice is heard. And thirdly, I want to create a Keys Sustainable Coalition countywide. I ask that you vote for me, Michelle Coldiron, because our future matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of you for being here and for your time tonight. And next up will be Monroe County Mosquito Control. Okay. We're actually rolling along pretty good here. So when we have completed this, the mosquito control portion, maybe we'll take just a couple-minute break. And then last but not least, of course, will be our Marathon City Council race and candidates for that. Okay. And because we're actually doing good on time, and we just have 2 candidates and only a couple questions for mosquito control, we're just going to keep it really simple, and we'll do the intro at 30 seconds. Everything else will be 1 minute. Okay, guys? Sound good? All right. Another last-minute change, just to keep it fresh. Okay. So first up here, we have Ralph DePalma, the challenger, and Phil Goodman, the incumbent. So we're going to start with you, Ralph, for your opening statement. 30 seconds.
Okay, my name is Ralph DePalma. I'm running for mosquito control at District 2. Lived in Florida all my adult life. Lived in the Keys since 2001. Army veteran. I graduated from Florida International University. I've worked on the space shuttle program up in Cape Canaveral. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, software developer. And I worked for mosquito control up until 2014. I helped bring mosquito control into the modern era of high tech.
All right, thank you, Ralph. Phil, opening statement, 30 seconds.
I'm Phil Goodman. I'm Commissioner in District 2. I'm in my second term. I'm also the Chairman of the Mosquito Control Board. I'm a veteran. I'm a member of the Sanctuary Advisory Council here in the Keys, a member of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, and a member of the Key West Military Affairs Committee. I'm a retired chemist. I have an MBA degree, retired chemical president. I'm running on my record as a fiscal conservative and one who's helped transform mosquito control into a science-based, technology-driven organization that it is today. I'm proud of what we've done, and we still have a lot more to do, and I ask for your vote in November.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. All right, Phil, we're going to keep it with you. 1 minute for everyone on questions and rebuttals, okay? All right, Phil. British biotech company Oxitec hopes to release its genetically modified mosquitoes in the Florida Keys and calls them friendly mosquitoes, the offspring of which are sterile and die almost immediately. Do you support the release of GM mosquitoes? If your board voted to release them, where in the Keys would you have the trial performed?
Okay, right now I think people need to ask, why do we look at technologies like this? And the reason is, we're controlling 30 to 50% of the Aedes aegypti mosquito in the Florida Keys. We need to be controlling much more. This is a good control level, but when it rains for a week or wind blows for a week and we're not allowed to spray, that 30 to 50% really drops. If you combine that with having a local transmission or a local case coming in, you stand the risk of having local transmission. And so I am for new technologies, because right now I was in the chemical industry my entire career, and there's no new technology chemical-wise that will fill this gap. So I think the sterile insect technique is the only thing that's out there right now. There's several of those. The Oxitec is one. If it passes the EPA, right now they're reviewing it and have been reviewing it. If they approve it, I would, and they find that it is safe to use, I am for it, because I think this is the way. Mosquitoes killing mosquitoes is the way we have to go in the future. We cannot spray ourselves out of this to protect our community longer.
All right, thank you, Phil. Same question, Ralph? Would you?
Yeah, the GMO issue has done nothing but tear communities apart. We had to have a referendum in 2016 over. I think it's impractical. I think there's been no feasibility study. There's been no cost-benefit analysis. There are more business reasons not to do this than there are science reasons to do it. Our liquid larvicide is about 90% effective. It's just very expensive to use. We have a number of other controls that they test and they try every year. New things will be coming out. I'm just not sold on GMO technology as a viable solution. It seems unwieldy, unmanageable. We don't know how much it's going to cost, and there's other things we could do to eliminate the Aedes aegypti mosquito. And that's one mosquito. There are 31 different types of mosquitoes in the Keys. There are 2 that carry infectious disease. The albopictus is the second one, and this will have no effect on that at all.
Okay. Thank you, Ralph. Next question, Ralph, you're going to lead this one off. For the release to commence, the release of the genetically modified mosquitoes, that is, the trial must be approved by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, after a public comment period. There have been 2 public comment periods in the last year. Why do you think the EPA extended the comment period for Oxitex-friendly mosquitoes more than once?
It's probably more than one reason. I think a lot of the reason is just public pressure. The science is not complete. They haven't proven that the GMO mosquito will not have any adverse effect. There's been changes in the EPA too, as you know, and so it's probably all lengthened the time to do the approval process. We have a doctor in Key West that's testified before the EPA. We have a number of reasons that it's taken so long. It's an odd technology. I mean, it's a really exotic way you're going to release millions of mosquitoes in a tourist area to control mosquitoes. It's a tough one, and they had no other agency that would sign up to approve it. They could, it's not a chemical, so they had to find an agency to approve this technology, and EPA was the last on the list.
Thank you, Ralph. Same question, Phil. 1 minute.
This was approved before under the Obama administration through the FDA, the CDC, and the EPA. They all approved this technology, but we had a local referendum, and we decided to move the site. After that, the Trump administration, they reorganized the EPA, and it's gotten hung up in there. I mean, I'll admit, I don't know why. There was a lot of response to the public response period, and I think this delayed a while. But the EPA wants to be very thorough with it, and we want them to be very thorough with it. We want to be sure that they feel that it's a safe thing to do. And we're talking about medical doctors. We have a medical doctor on our board that is in favor of it. Dr. Doug Mader here has spoke really for this because it also affects heartworms and dogs. So, and as far as the cost and all the other logistics, these things have been worked out. This has been really detailed. My opponent doesn't know it, but I mean, a lot of most of the details really have been worked out. We're just waiting for the EPA. It's been run for over 10 years very successfully in a number of places, and we're looking forward to see what they say here.
All right, thank you, Phil. All right, gentlemen, we're going to move into closing statements. Phil, you're going to lead us off again. 1 minute. Closing statements.
Mosquito control today is not the same as it was when I joined the Mosquito Control Board in 2011. We're very focused, we're proactive, we make things happen, and we've kept this community safe from mosquito-borne diseases, even though the number of these diseases and the number of people infected have been significantly on the rise the last 10 years in all of the Americas. My opponent wants to go back to mosquito control of 2008, 9, and 10, and there were a lot of problems, mismanagement at that time. Dengue fever was widespread transmitting in Key West for those 2 years. He also talks about we've mismanaged our budget. But, we've done very well on the budget. I sit on that board with 2 MBAs, 2 CPAs, a medical doctor, and I can assure you we scrutinize every line item and really look after the taxpayers' money. Okay. So, we've come a long way in the last 8 years, in my opinion. but we've got a long way to go, too. So I ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Ralph, 1 minute closing statement.
Well, I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. And I don't think we can keep moving forward without some change on this board. They had, in 2012, they had $7.6 million in reserves. They're just about broke right now. They had to raise taxes this year to make a $750,000 lease payment for new helicopters. They have huge issues coming up that will require new approaches, new ideas, change. That's what we need on mosquito control. I worked there. I loved working at mosquito control. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, NASA. I've never been more proud of the things that I did in my life as I was working for mosquito control. It was nice being something that was rated the best in the country, maybe the world. I'd like to get back to that. I'd like to restore mosquito control and get back to killing a lot of mosquitoes in the Keys. Need your vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Last, and certainly not least, will be our Marathon City Council. But I think, as we mentioned, if you guys want to take just a couple-minute break, please, and we're going to come right back in and finish up what's been a great program so far.
And welcome back to the Middle Keys Candidate Forum. It is now time for tonight's main event. Okay, guys. So I'd like to start off by thanking you guys so much for coming and for your candidacy. From left to right, we have Luis Gonzalez, John Kissick, George Nugent, and Mark Senmartin. So follow the same format. You get your 30-second opening statement, and then we'll go into a Q&A. Everybody will get one question. Everybody will have the opportunity to answer first twice, and then you guys will all have 30 seconds to rebut. And then there will be an individual question for each one of you that you will get 1 minute to respond to, and then everybody else will get 30 seconds to respond, okay? And then followed by a 1 minute closing statement, okay? So let's start at the left side of the dais with Luis Gonzalez for your opening statement.
Hi, good evening. I'm Luis Gonzalez. I am a 30-year resident of the city of Marathon. During those 30 years, I have been actively involved in many, many, many community programs. The experiences that I have gained through these involvements is what I'm going to take to lead this city into the future. Thank you.
Mr. John Kissick.
I am John Kissick. Most of you have never heard of me, but that's about to change. I moved here 13 years ago and immediately fell in love with this community. I knew this was the place I wanted to live. I am proud to say I live in Marathon. I started my own business here. I'm currently the owner of Fazzoli Brothers Swimming Pool Contractors. I'm raising a family with my wife Angelica. We have a son Jack of 7 and daughter Whitney 4. I'm just your average next door citizen, neighbor. I face the same issues you do every day. I deal with finding affordable housing and places to raise my family, things for them to do, and that's why I decided to join the city council.
Thank you, John. And George Nugent.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight, and thank you, Jason and Dan, for throwing this event so we can meet our fellow people here. And I'm George Nugent, presently serving as a Monroe County Commissioner. I've lived here for 34 years. I've been the president of the Marathon Chamber of Commerce in 1995, and I'm married to my wife, Susie Nugent, who has been my leader and voice of wisdom and keeping me on track from time to times when I steer off.
Thank you very much, George. And on the very end, we have our incumbent, Councilman Mark Senmartin.
Thanks to the Chamber and to Weekly for putting on this event. I'm Mark Senmartin, your current City Councilman here in Marathon, And I'm an open book. No matter where I am, whether it's my son's tennis match or I'm in Tallahassee fighting for home rule, I'm the same guy. I'm the same guy that believes in open government, the guy that believes in transparency, the guy that believes in holding everyone accountable. Those of you who know me know that I stand on principle. I am not a politician. Even after a few years on the city council, I am not afraid to vote alone, and I will always be voting in the best interest of Marathon.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so let's start with Louis Gonzalez. In mid-July, the city of Marathon made an offer on the old Quay property at the southbound entrance of Marathon on the Bayside. It is assessed at $2.1 million. What is the city's best use for that property?
Well, currently, the best use is to maintain it because we are right now in hurricane recovery mode. So to go forward and invest money in a new parcel without repairing our existing parks is not a good thing to do. So I think as we move forward, having that parcel for families and guests to use it as they're using currently right now, as a sunset area, as a fishing place, and expansion to the boat ramp, which definitely keeps traffic off the road, and safety should be a priority there.
Okay, thank you. And John, what do you think the city should be using the Quay property for?
It should be used as a park. It's not big enough for too much more, but they need to make it safe. It's kind of a hazard at the moment. That's it.
Okay, thank you, John. And George, same question.
As people know, familiar with the Quay property, it's like the second entrance into Marathon, and it's something that should be enhanced in a way that when you arrive at the gateway of Marathon, that you recognize that you're in a community such as Marathon. And I support the acquisition of that piece of property, and I think many pieces of property should be being looked at right now for needs that we're going to have in the future for parks such as this and entranceways to into Marathon.
Okay, thank you. And Mark, what should the city use that property for?
The city kind of hit a home run with that one, I think. We ended up buying it at a great price. We got owner financed at a great interest rate. In 4 years, the property is going to be paid for. Possibilities of use for that property, I would love to see some kind of an art walk or some kind of a community type event place there. And I'm a businessman. You know, in a few years, that place is going to increase in value. And if at any time we decide that it's not in the best interest of Marathon to have it, we can sell it and make money on it. So that's I think it's a great idea.
Okay, great. John, this next question is going to go to you first. In early 2017, the city of Marathon landscaped the medians of Overseas Highway. Hurricane Irma did a lot of damage to that landscaping. Is this expenditure a good investment, and should landscaping be an annual line item in Marathon's budget?
Well, yes. You want people to come to town and have it look nice. So I think we should keep it maintained and replant trees. But once we, have the money for that and we take care of all the other needs that we have, it should be an annual line item. Yes.
Okay, thank you. George, do you think the city of Marathon should have a line item budget for planting trees in Marathon?
Without question. I think that Irma has done a good bit of damage to our entranceway and the median and that runs through the US 1 corridor that we have. I think that landscaping throughout this community is needed and therefore needs to be a budget item and a line item.
Okay, Mark.
We've been trying to figure out what to do with those medians since I got on the council. Right now, we have them looking pretty good. Public Works does a great job with it, and I think they've got it under control. I really don't think we need to have it as a separate line item. What I would like to see as a separate line item is the kayak dock that we've been promising Sunset Park up in Grassy Key. It's been in the works for 4 years now and has gone nowhere, so I'd like to see that moving forward.
Okay. And Louis?
Yes, I also believe that it should be a line item, but what I would like to see with the medians, because we all know and we drive these roads every day, we constantly see our folks out there, the city personnel on a day-to-day basis, working. We need to make these medians a little bit worker-friendly, and we need to do a little bit more hardscaping. And that would eliminate a lot of maintenance.
Okay, thank you. So George, this next question is going to go to you first. Many people mention that Marathon does not have the same visual appeal as Islamorada or other communities throughout the Keys. Do you think Marathon should adopt an architectural standard for our US 1 corridor?
This is something that has been discussed over the years about creating an architectural standard. I think at one point in time, when I was on the board of directors with the Chamber of Commerce, this was an item that was discussed, and we were trying to provide some incentives. And I think the Chamber of Commerce, even today, is providing some incentives, awards, prizes, dollars to improve that. I think we need to do a better job, I feel like that we should have architectural standards. I don't believe in imposing certain things on someone. We'd have to walk delicately down that aisle to have that discussion. But clearly, we need to do some things that will improve the face of the city of Marathon.
Okay. And Mark, do you think that Marathon should adopt architectural standards for the US 1 corridor?
Okay, so that question was kind of made for me because I brought forth an ordinance about 3 years ago where I wanted to see US 1 corridor have architectural standards for new construction or major remodel. You know, if you're going to build it right. I think we should have had something where we have attractive, Keysy-looking buildings that would encourage people to stop and spend their time and money in Marathon instead of moving on to Key West.
Okay, thank you. Louis.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you think Marathon should adopt architectural standards for our US 1 corridor?
I do not. I feel that everyone with their properties should be able to develop them in a way that they so please. Of course, keeping the beauty of the highway, you know, we don't want, you know, trashy looking places along the US 1 corridor, but we want them to be maintained and upkept.
Okay, thank you. And John, do you think Marathon should adopt architectural standards for our US 1 corridor?
Yes. I think there's a lot of shabby looking buildings here that need to be cleaned up, and there should be more of not all look the same or a standard cookie cutter for new buildings, but definitely let's clean some up. Have some standards that people have to maintain for cleanliness, paint them. There's a lot of them that just doesn't look good. So the more we do, the better.
Okay, thank you. So Mark, this first question will be for you, and it's kind of like a visioning question. Where do you see Marathon in 5 years? Like, what's your 5-year plan for Marathon? What do you see Marathon in 10 years? Where would you see Marathon in 15 years?
So my vision for Marathon, I want to see a stronger Marathon. I want to see a family-friendly community where Friday night football games and concerts and art walks in the park are something that we have regular. I want to see controlled development that makes Marathon a destination and balances tourism with locals' quality of life. I want commercial air service, and I want to see good-paying jobs that allow more people to own their own homes and have a place our kids can succeed when they grow up. Whether they stay here or they come back from school somewhere, I also like to see a healthy environment where our commercial fishing industry is #1 in the country. These are my goals, and I've been working on this on the City Council since the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Louis, you got 30 seconds on that one.
All right.
5-year, 10-year, and 15 years in Marathon.
I want to see a Marathon that continues to maintain and upgrade its infrastructure. As we continue to develop, our infrastructure needs to improve to meet the needs of the residents and the guests in order to maintain a thriving tourist economy. I also want to see our water quality maintained because our commercial fishing industry is extremely important, and with poor water quality comes bad fishing.
Okay, and John?
In the long term, I would like to see some of the same things. I'd like to see airline here. I would like to see fishing industry maintained, stay maintained. Definitely affordable housing. That's one of my big issues. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. And George, 5-year plan for Marathon, 10-year, 15-year.
Well, although I've been a county commissioner for the last 20 years, I have done a lot of good things for the city of Marathon and the Middle Keys. And even going back before the city incorporated, as president of the Chamber of Commerce, as executive member of the Marathon Economic Development Council, we developed the Marathon Community Park, the Marathon Marina, funding for Marathon wastewater, affordable housing allocations, changing the TDC policy where the city would be treated equal to the county. There's a lot of things that we've done at the county level that has enhanced Marathon's ability to develop its potential, which has been kind of dormant for a long time here. I appreciate what Mark says about this, but come on, guys, we can get some of these things done. The Save 07 Bridge is one of the major accomplishments. That's going to be one of the greatest draws in this city, Middle Keys, and for the county when that's completed.
Okay, time's up, George. Thank you. All right. Next question is for you, Louis. The City of Marathon's vacation rental law has been grandfathered by the state of Florida. It's widely understood that attempts to change Marathon laws would result in penalties from the state that would include allowing nightly rentals in residential neighborhoods. But if you had the opportunity to make a change to the vacation rental law, what would you propose?
Well, first of all, I want to say that, I feel that vacation rentals is a unique option for our visitors. Not every guest wants to stay in a hotel, so having a vacation rental is an incredible option for families. But I also, before we go into making changes, I want what's currently in the books. I mean, the tenant needs to follow the rules. The managing agent that rents these units has to enforce the rules. The city needs to have, if it takes an additional code enforcement agent in the evening to go around and monitor these properties, the quality of life for our residents cannot continue to be jeopardized because of vacation rentals' lack of enforcement. Thank you.
Okay. John, same question to you. If you had the opportunity to make a change to the vacation rental law, what would you propose?
Definitely, they need to get a grip on the rentals. Same things. I think they're out of control. Nobody's enforcing rules. And how many vacation rentals do we really need in homes? I think there's enough hotels and homes. It's everybody's right to buy a house and make a profit, but there must be some kind of control that either put a tax, a higher little tax on those people that are renting, or a fee, increase the fees for the licenses on the new rentals.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, John. Now, George, if you had the opportunity to make a change to the vacation rental law, what would you propose?
Well, let me just be clear about this, Jason. There's nothing that we can do now, and I know if I were God, we could make some changes on this. Vacation rentals play a very important role in our economy in the city of Marathon. However, because of the preemption by the state legislature in Tallahassee, and in their infinite wisdom and their attempt at undoing home rule, and they preempted us from making any changes. But so enforcement, I think, is the most important thing that we can do to the rules that we have in place.
Okay, thank you. And same question to you, Mark.
I've been fighting in Tallahassee for home rule for years now, and we've been working towards that day. But even with the restrictions we have, it has gotten a lot better. We increased license fees so that we can hire an extra code enforcement officer. We've cracked down on illegal rentals, started classes to educate rental managers. Now, without the restriction of Tallahassee, it would give us stronger tools if we needed them. But I'd continue to monitor the vacation rentals, and if they get to be a real issue, we could take whatever action was necessary to make sure that they're not a problem in the community.
Okay, thank you. Next question goes to John. Right? Okay, sorry, got a lot of questions here. In the past 5 years, the City of Marathon has made a concerted effort to bring various services in-house, such as hiring a city attorney and now a special magistrate to hear code cases. Has this had a positive or negative impact on the city's functionality?
Well, could you repeat that question?
Sure.
Beginning.
Sure. In the past 5 years, the City of Marathon has made a concerted effort to bring various services in-house, such as hiring our own city attorney, and we now have a special magistrate to hear code cases. Has this had a positive or negative impact on the city's functionality?
I think this is good. It speeds up legal matters by having an in-house attorney and saves cost. Same with everything else.
Okay, that's a good answer. George.
Repeat the question, please.
So in the past 5 years, Marathon has made a concerted effort to bring various services in-house, like hiring our city attorney, and we now have a special magistrate to hear code cases. Has had a positive or negative impact on the city's functionality?
Well, the county has the same rules that the city has implemented to put in place by a special magistrate to listen to these code cases. One of the things that when you have people breaking the codes, it's kind of tough on elected officials to be dealing with this, even if they appoint a separate independent code board. I think a special magistrate works, and I do not think it's a negative. I think it's a positive.
Okay, thank you. And Mark.
So in my first campaign, bringing those services in-house was a priority for me, and we managed to do that. The attorney being in-house has led to increased productivity. You can walk down the hall and ask him a question at no charge, which is great. And then, of course, our management of our wastewater system, bringing that in-house has had a positive effect on, of course, the money, because we were spending a lot of money contracting that out, but the service and the quality. You guys remember what it was like when you could ride down the road and you can smell the plants just going down the highway. We don't have that problem anymore.
Okay, thank you. Louis.
Of course. And any time that you could bring services in-house and save money, it makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this next question goes to you, George. US 1 has been at capacity for several years now, and several new hotels have opened or will be open in the Middle Keys within the next 12 months. Alternate modes of transportation into and out of our area are needed. If elected, what will or can you do to return commercial air service to Marathon?
Well, as we talked about it earlier when another panel was up here, it's a complicated situation. We've got a new airport manager that has come in that, as was pointed out, has a tremendous amount of abilities in these areas and arenas that we'll have to tap into, and I plan on. In fact, I've already talked to the new airport manager. I'm going to have a meeting with him here shortly to discuss these things, see what his thoughts are. But we've also got some problems at the airport itself. We have a taxiway that has FAA regulations that create situations to where FAA is going to be reluctant until we get that taxiway moved to bring in certain commercial carriers because of the separation issue that exists, there has to exist if we bring in those commercial carriers. We can bring in the smaller regional jets, and those are the things that we'll be working on and talking to the new airport manager about.
Okay, thank you. And Mark, if elected, what will or can you do to return commercial air service to Marathon?
I think can is the operative word there. I have spoken in the past. I've had meetings with small air charter services and tried to get them to come in. They are always looking for some kind of subsidy, which isn't a problem. It needs to be the right air carrier. It needs to be the right type of service, and they need to provide certain things in their agreement with us in exchange for certain guarantees financially. I don't have a problem with it. I think the benefits way outweigh the risks. We just need to make it happen with the right company.
Okay, thank you. And Louis.
Well, anytime you could take vehicles off the road, it's a definite win for everybody. We all know that come season, the roads are packed. So I would definitely be in favor of it, but I would definitely want to see shorter flights where we could go to a bigger hub and go from there, Miami, Tampa, Orlando. Those kind of routes require smaller aircrafts with minimal disruption to the neighborhoods.
Okay. But the question was, what can or would you do to return commercial air service to Marathon?
What can I do?
Yeah.
I could wave a magic wand and hope to get them here.
All right.
There you go.
Let me know when you find that. All right, John. What can or would you do to return commercial air service to Marathon?
Help encourage the airlines to come here. I know we'll have to do some infrastructure to make that happen and offer the incentives and guarantees. Anything we can do to coax them back here again and hope they'll be profitable. I'm for it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now guys, we're going to go to this question. I know it's confusing, but here's what I want you to think about. Name one Marathon city action, not ordinance, that you would want to repeal, eliminate, or revise, and one that you would propose or sponsor in the first year. And this question goes to you, Mark.
Starts with me? Okay. As far as amend, I'd like to amend the transfer fees that we have right now. If you transfer a ROGO unit within the city of Marathon, there's a $20,000 transfer fee that goes into Affordable Housing Fund. I would like to see that increased to $60,000, which we've talked about, and hopefully with some chance that's going to happen. As far as repealing, we already repealed the 1,500-foot rule in the PIG ordinance, so I don't know what's left to repeal there. And then propose... I'm still stuck on the US 1 beautification. You know, I would like to have an ordinance to make US 1 more attractive corridor.
Okay, thank you. Louis, one ordinance you would repeal, eliminate, or revise, and one you would like to propose or sponsor in your first term on council.
I would definitely like to propose that there's an ordinance that governs the taxi cab industry. Currently, you really don't know who's a cab and who isn't. You have 2 or 3 companies that specifically identify themselves, and then there's just cars out there that when you get to Kmart or Publix or one of those places, you walk outside and they all of a sudden have a taxi cab. You don't know if these vehicles are safe. There's got to be some type of inspection process that the city brings forward. That way we know. Sorry, thank you.
That's good, thank you. John, can you name one Marathon city ordinance you would like to repeal, eliminate, or revise, or one that you would propose or sponsor during your first term?
Oh, I'd love to see some changes at the building department and make it easier for people to get simple permits, walk in one day, walk out with a permit. Why wait 6 weeks for a permit? That's ridiculous. That's my main one.
Thank you, John. George?
I'd like to, and it's under scrutiny right now, but a sign ordinance. I know that we're dealing with this in the county, but certainly we need to sit down with the committee, discuss this. I know business owners are sensitive to exactly how you do this, so you need to bring in a group of people and discuss the sign ordinance. And I think that's something that we need to revise and/or amend.
Okay, thank you. So now what we have here, we have questions for each one of you, tailored to your background. So you'll have 1 minute to respond, and then everybody else will have 30 seconds to rebut or respond however they prefer. So we'll start with you, George. Back in 98 and 99, you were not in favor of Marathon's incorporation as a city. Have you changed your mind, and if so, why?
Well, I don't think that's a fair statement to start off with. I just ran for county commissioner and was elected to the county commission. And I did have my questions about that, but I think that, and I think later on you have people that still have questions about not whether the incorporations, I believe the incorporation was a good thing. And I think that Marathon has done a lot of good things over the 20 years that it's been in existence. I think it still has a lot of potential for development. And again, I had questions about it, but as a county commissioner, We let it go to a vote. It went to a vote, and I stand by that vote.
Okay, that's cool. Mark?
Thank you.
Yeah. That's a good answer. I was just curious.
What's the question?
Well, I mean, we're talking about incorporation. I mean,
Was it a good idea? Was that the question?
yeah, it was for George, like what changed his mind after,
Okay, I'm not sure what would have changed George's mind, but I can tell you that in '99, I was actually just buying my first house, my wife and I, and all of the talk came about of us becoming a city. I had no interest in politics. I didn't follow any of it. I could care less about it, to be honest with you, at the time. And I was excited. I was excited Marathon was finally going to have a voice. We were going to have a voice of our own. We were going to be out from under county rule. And we were going to have the chance to grow and prosper and become what we've come today.
Okay, thank you. Louis, why don't you just tell us what was on your mind back there in 98, 99 as Marathon was getting ready to incorporate?
98, 99, those were great years. But yes, I also was in favor of the incorporation. I've always been a strong believer of controlling my own destiny and setting my own rules. So that's why I feel that incorporating allowed Marathon that option.
Okay, great. John, any thoughts on the city's incorporation back in 98 or 99 that you would like to talk about?
Oh, I was not here, but I think it was a good thing they did. Anytime you can have control over your own neighborhood, so to speak, then that's good.
Okay. Mark, this question is for you. What is one ordinance you sponsored that did not pass? And if you were to bring it up again, how would you build consensus?
Well, the ordinance, like I mentioned earlier, was the US 1 beautification. And I was looking for architectural standards. I really wanted the redevelopment of Marathon, especially the west end of Marathon. When buildings got knocked down and it was time to redo them, that there was something to look at going down US 1. You can do this right or you can do it quick. And I think we needed to take our time with it. An ordinance would have been great proposing that. You can just look at Royal Furniture as a great example of what a nice building on US 1 looks like, as opposed to our own Public Works building, which is a big metal box on US 1 that looks terrible. So how would I bring it back? I would get the Chamber of Commerce and business people, the realtors, and meet with all of them and make sure that they are all on board and understand that when Marathon is beautiful and the corridor is attractive, we win. Marathon wins. So that's how I would do it.
Okay, thank you. So Louis, I just asked Mark what is one ordinance he would like to bring up again that did not pass. He's talking about redevelopment, specifically that City Public Works building. How do you feel that the city's done and making sure that the US 1 corridor looks good?
Well, I think we've progressed leaps and bounds. Unfortunately, we had Hurricane Irma that came by and wiped out the majority of it. I think we need to replant and redo all the corridors as soon as possible. I kind of don't like the idea that we put up such a beautiful City Hall building and then a block down the road, like Mark referred to, we put up a metal barn. I don't get the gist of that.
Okay, thank you. So John, we're talking about redeveloping in the US 1 corridor. There's some buildings that have been built within the last 10 years that don't really fit architectural standards. What are your thoughts on architectural standards along the US 1 corridor?
Well, that goes back to the previous question about having the standards. Building like that, should have been pushed farther off the road. I think anything we can do to improve their US 1 is great. I think they did a great job after the hurricane cleaning up and getting back to somewhat resemblance of what it was. And let's get continuing to make it great again.
Okay, thank you. George, any comments, concerns, questions, thoughts that you'd like to share with us on redeveloping US 1?
Well, as I stated earlier, you get into a sticky wicket there when you start putting controls on what's to develop. I appreciate the architectural standards. I wish that many of the buildings that we have that are less than attractive could be redone. And so I think we all seem to be on the same page there.
Okay. Louis, this next one's for you.
Yes.
If a contract for essential city services comes up for renewal and an out-of-town company puts in a bid 35% lower than a local bid, how would you vote and what would your comments be?
Well, first of all, I would rely heavily on staff. Staff recommendation is something that I would rely on. Secondly, every contract that goes out with a rubric that breaks down specific areas of qualification, of requirements, so forth and so on. I would never solely base a contract on price, because as we all know in the audience and at home, what you get for cheap sometimes turns out to be expensive.
Okay, thank you. John, any comments, concerns about that? If
I
a
do agree. Always, the lowest bidder is not always the best contractor. So you have to take in consideration the background, what the projects they've done before. Price is a consideration, but shouldn't be the final bottom line.
Okay. George, essential city services come up for renewal and an out-of-county company puts in a bid 35% lower than a local bid. How would you vote?
Typically in an RFP process, there's a review by staff. Staff reviews that, and if somebody's 35% lower, I'm not going to make the taxpayers, based upon they all achieve the same level of and answer the criteria the way it's done, and that's why they have low bidders, and that's why they're considered. And to pay somebody a higher fee, and there's equality in the abilities, the taxpayer is not supposed to pick up that tab.
Okay, thank you. And Mark?
We have a system in place that gives local contractors a 10% advantage over non-local contractors. And the idea here is that the local businesses have more living and business expense just by being here. So the problem is that we use a system to figure out scoring, and it's not applied equally to all contractors. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a little bit skewed. It needs an overhaul, and it's set up in a manner so that businesses that do business with the city will continue to do business with the city, and that's not open government to me.
Okay, thank you. John, this question is for you. What do you bring to the table? What is your experience and area of expertise that's going to make you a great councilman?
Well, I actually listen to people and what they say, and I would govern accordingly. I have extensive knowledge in construction. That would be a big asset to any construction project that's proposed. And I'm a good guy.
Okay, thank you very much. George, 30 seconds. What's your experience or level of expertise? What's going to make you a great councilman? Anything?
Well, 20 years of education at the county level, at the public service level. I think I bring a lot to the table that will benefit the city of Marathon. My relationships that I've established over 20 years with Tallahassee and also Washington, D.C., with our representatives both at the federal level and at the state level, certainly can be applied and seen as something that's very valuable to the city of Marathon.
Okay, thank you. And Mark?
Well, my 5th year on the council, the first year or two, you are kind of really getting the hang of it. After that, you learn how things work. You see how the sausage is made, and you adjust accordingly. I have learned how to get things done when, I'm be honest with you, when there's at least 3 people that are against me. And there's more than one way to skin a cat, and that's what you have to learn when you are in this position.
Okay, thank you very much. Louis, what is it that your level of experience or area of expertise is going to bring to making you a great councilman?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and piggyback on what he just said. He says he knows the way the sausage is made, and that's a line that's been used down south. So I'm going to go ahead and say I know the way to change the recipe. I have the passion and desire that it takes to work for all citizens in this community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now those are our final questions. So now we're going to just move on to our closing statements. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate your candidacy and all the time that you guys put into running and time away from your families and your businesses. So big thank you to you guys. Yeah, go ahead. So why don't we start with Mark for our closing statements? 1 minute each.
Well, thanks for coming out and listening, and to those who are watching at home. It's always great to hear different views. That's what elections are all about. But when it comes to Marathon, we've done great things. We've had great success with our new city manager and bringing our attorney and wastewater management in-house. We've paid down $3 million in debt and brought our financial reserves to a responsible level just in time for Irma. And that's just a few examples, but there's more to do. We need to continue to manage recovery from Irma, financially as well as physically. We need to keep our focus on truly affordable housing and on giving businesses the opportunity to succeed by using whatever tools we have available in our local government. We need to keep our community family friendly. So the reason for our success so far and the reason I'm optimistic going forward is because of all of you. Marathon is stronger when everyone is involved with our government every day. I will always be available, and I will always be your voice on the City Council. Please vote for me, Mark Sen Martin, on November 6th for Marathon City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. George.
Yes. If I'm successful in my bid for this privilege and honor to serve the city that I love so much, I sailed here 34 years ago, and it was love at first sight. And the more I became involved in this community, especially the Middle Keys, Duck Key included, with the business community. My wife and I bought Porky's in 1990 and ran it successfully for 15 years. I understand the small business approach to getting things done. And then I've got 20 years of public service where I've been responsive and accessible to listen to the needs and wants of the people throughout this county. I can't say enough about the residents of this community who I love so much and who I recognize and know so many throughout the city of Marathon. And it's especially will be rewarding for me to provide the services that I know I can deliver to bring out the potential in this wonderful place that we all love called the city of Marathon. On November the 6th, vote for me, George Nugent, and use both of your votes to elect commissioners, or councilmen.
Thank you, George. John.
Yes, again, I'm John Kissick. I am that mythical creature you've all been searching for, an honest politician. What makes me different from these other candidates, besides the only one without a mustache? I'm the only candidate without any political ties or financial ties. I am a natural-born problem solver. I'm not part of the problem. I have natural leadership in my blood. I was raised by entrepreneurs. I will actually listen to the needs of the citizens and vote accordingly. I want to fix what's wrong with this town. A lot of kids graduate high school and they move away because they don't see opportunities or it's too expensive to live here. I want my kids to grow up in this town with visions of opportunities and goals of aspiring here. That's why I'm committed to continuing offering affordable housing solutions, not just renting, but also affordable home ownership. Let's encourage school programs that teach kids skills to live and make a living. My campaign is about offering Marathon something that we've wanted for a long time, a new way forward, another choice that makes sense, and absolute confidence that their elected leaders will make decisions based solely on what's best for Marathon. If you want a fresh face and a fresh mind in your city council without political baggage, please vote for me, John Kissick.
All right, thank you, John. Luis Gonzalez.
Well, I'd like to first of all start off by thanking the audience and those that have tuned in at home. I know it's been rough, about 2 hours. Thank you for sticking with us. I also know that how important your vote is to you. That's why I'm asking for your vote, because with your vote, together we can make the difference that it's going to require. Working together makes a big difference. I'm not going to ask you to vote for me on November 6th. I'm going to ask you to start voting for me tomorrow. Your vote by mail ballots will be hitting your house tomorrow, if not Wednesday. October 22nd starts early voting, and November 6th is the general election. Please vote early. Thank you and have a great night.
All right. Thank you guys so much again for coming. And if you guys want to watch this again and again and again, you can go to the Monroe County website. It's going to be on demand. And if you haven't, thank you guys all so much for coming. We look forward to you guys going out and voting on November 6th.